That sounds fun. That sounds fun.
Hi, friends. Welcome to another episode of That Sounds Fun. I'm your host, Annie F. Downs. I'm so happy to be here with you today. Before we dive into today's conversation, I want to tell you about one of our incredible sponsors. The show is sponsored by BetterHelp. Kids are always learning and growing, but as adults, sometimes we lose that curiosity. But y'all know I'd love to learn and ask questions. So what about you? Is there something new you want to learn? Gardening or a new language, maybe? Therapy can help you reconnect with your sense of wonder because your back to school era can come at any age and continue on forever. So if you've been thinking about starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, super convenient, and flexible to your schedule. Plus, getting started is so easy. You just fill out a quick questionnaire. We love a quiz. And you'll be matched with a licensed therapist. Plus, you can switch therapists anytime at no extra cost. So you make sure you find the right match for you. Rediscover your curiosity with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/thatsoundsfun, and you'll get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/thatsoundsfun. Today on the show, we are talking all things 2020 with our dear friend, Eddie Kaufholz. I know y'all been asking about a recap of the Ryman show with Eddie, but we're saving that for the actual birthday week of That Sounds Fun, which is in November. But Annie and Eddie Keep Talking got started in 2020, so you know we are chopping it up about the crazy and weird days of that year. What a wild time. So here's my conversation with our dear friend, recapping 2020. Here's me and Eddie Kaufholz.
That sounds fun.
Edward, welcome back to That Sounds Fun for your 154th time. Mostly, I'm so thrilled that we saw each other last week.
Annie, I do, like, usually when we record these things, it feels like it's been a while. But this, I'm just like, hey, it's good to see you again, pal.
I know. Okay, so we're not going to talk a ton about the Ryman today because
No.
we're going to tell everybody about that,
Well,
teaser. It's coming in the future.
Right.
But I got to know, how was it being in Nashville? How was the Ryman? Did you have fun?
Oh, I mean, it was crazy. It was crazy. And the best part, but I mean, there's so much family there. So there's like the whole Annie family. There's like our closest friends in the world. We brought people with us. It was just like a weekend of, I went to a record store, many record stores.
Yeah, you went to Grimey's, right?
Grimey's and Third Man Records.
Yeah.
Bought records and it was great. And the best food. We ate this pizza that had pickles on it. It was a pink box. Have you ever had this pizza?
No. Slim and Huskies is an option.
That's a little personal. I don't.
Is there-
No name calling here. We're fine.
Is there a person behind you or a cat?
Well, there's certainly a cat. Where is my sweet angel? Oh, yeah, she's around. Oh, yeah, she's over there.
Okay.
Waffles is around.
Like, is there someone sneaking up on you that I want to warn you about?
Oh, this morning, the girls are just getting up. They're still in their jammies. I'm sitting here doing my work. And all of a sudden, 4 people walk in the house that I don't know. And they were here to do the once a month deep clean of the house. And they had gotten it wrong by a week. And they just all of a sudden are here. And I'm like,
And just let themselves in?
oh, yeah, because they usually do. Because we aren't here. We leave the
That's
back
right.
door
You
open.
get out. Yeah.
Right. They don't need me in their business.
Gosh, hilarious.
Anyhow, Ryman was
Okay,
amazing.
Ryman.
Are you
Yeah.
happy? Were you happy?
Yeah, totally. It was
Great.
such a dream. So many moments that I will just legitimately never forget. It's impossible to thank everyone enough, to print enough pictures. I mean, the whole thing's just impossible to summarize and recap and to thank. I just feel like I'm never going to be able to thank people enough. So,
Oh, no. Can I tell you my favorite moment that was not recorded and can never be seen?
yes.
So Demi Tebow, of course,
Yes.
is backstage waiting to come on after I get to go on.
Yes.
Her husband is Florida Gators quarterback legend, for people that don't know. And as a Florida Gator, it's very nice to meet Demi Tebow. I did try to figure out a way to ask her to tell her husband that I think he's great, which I never did.
Okay.
And I asked Knox about it, and he's like, you can't do that. You just got to be
Oh,
cool.
really? Knox said, don't ask.
But I came back, and she was like, she has like a cool accent. She was like, great job. And I was like, and it was everything I could do not to be like, please tell Tim Tebow I think he's so cool.
A lot of people thought Tim was going to be the surprise guest. So, like, I had multiple people say to me beforehand, is Tim Tebow going to come out at any point?
That would have been
I don't know. The answer
complex
was no.
series of emotions for you.
I know. I love him so much as a human. He could not be
Right.
He is exactly who you hope he is.
Yeah.
He is exactly who he is on TV, on his Instagram. That is who he is as a human.
Yeah.
And also he went to Florida. And he ruined my life multiple times as a student.
Oh, yeah, he was brutal. I mean, it's really, to a much lesser degree, it's how you and I have had to learn to coexist because we have there is no team other than the Savannah Bananas that you and I even come close to intersecting on.
Right, that's right. Speaking of college football, are you so happy it's here?
Yeah. Are you? And Georgia,
What is
of course.
it about this? I mean, the feel that first morning when College Game Day will be on TV and the weather will be just crisp enough that I can open my patio doors. Mm-hmm. I just cannot wait. I cannot wait.
Oh, because it's all together, isn't it? It's like it's ushered in together with like the chill, not even chill, but just the summer heat is a little bit shaved off.
Yeah.
And it's Saturday afternoons and it's long friends over. I mean, it's everything that it represents.
It just there's always one of my favorite things about group gatherings is when there is something to gather about. So I went to this dinner with 7 girlfriends last night. Mm-hmm. When I tell you for 10 years, we saw each other every Monday night to watch The Bachelor or The Bachelorette.
Oh,
10 years.
Wow.
Until March 3rd of 2020.
Why was that?
Why could that be? We were in a group that night of people who had COVID that were the first people in our county to ever have COVID. And that's why I got...
I remember.
I got early quarantined, which is, we're talking about 2020 today, so this is very apropos. 10 years, we saw each other once a week because we had a thing to gather around.
Yes.
So last night at dinner, we were doing birthdays because literally 5 of the 6 of us have July or August birthdays. So we were like, let's do a birthday dinner.
Yeah.
And at one point, one of the women says, I really miss seeing y'all regularly.
Yeah.
Like, I just miss that we always had a thing for a decade. And so we decided we're going to start doing a thing again. We don't have a thing to gather around, but we have a place to go. So like, okay, 3 out of 4 weekends a month, we're going to go here. 1 out of 4, it's book club. And there's other people in the book club besides us.
Do you think you'll need a thing? Like, are you going to need to like...
Oh, I'm curious. They talked about what's our thing. But one of the gifts of college football...
Yes.
It's sports in general. This can be true about soccer. This can be true about anything. But in my life, one of the gifts of college football is then you go, hey, what are you doing at noon on Saturday? This SEC team is playing or this game is on. Let's go to lunch and go to a sports bar and eat there, catch up or, whatever.
Oh, yeah. Well, and you went to one of those schools where it was like that pattern started with us, maybe when you were younger. But like for me, it was like leaving my apartment, walking down to the stadium, 100%. Hanging out with people all day, all the young life people. You know what I mean? It was part of like the football game was a small few hour piece in the middle of an entire kind of prescribed ceremony almost around the whole thing. And we still like repeat that as much as we can.
Are you a night? So think back to being a student.
Yeah.
Did you prefer a night game where your whole where you had a slow Saturday morning and you maybe like ate breakfast at home or something and then you got ready and then you met up to tailgate at lunchtime? Yeah. Or so the options for our friends listening, the options are like a 12 o'clock game, a 3 o'clock game, or a 7 p.m. game. Which, as a student, was your favorite to attend?
3 o'clock.
Same.
All day 3. Why 3 o'clock for you? All day 3 o'clock.
That 7:30 dinner where everybody's left town. Like all the people who come in for the game, they're sitting in traffic leaving. We're not. Right. We're home.
Right.
And we can walk to a chicken tender place or a sandwich place and grab a dinner. And then you're kind of a little sunburned and you're kind of hot and you're sweaty, but you're not going to be out until 11:30 at night.
Yeah.
Dude.
Yeah.
What's the 3:30 game for you? Mine's the post dinner.
It's also the timing up to it. It's that because we lived on completely different like timelines, like you didn't have to set an alarm because for the noon one, maybe you're wanting to get there 2 hours early. So you're going to have to get up. Right. You got to get up. 3 o'clock.
If you're in charge of saving the tailgate place, you're there at 6.
Well, and also 3 o'clock allows you to get up, watch College Game Day, probably with 10 people. So
That's
you get
right.
a preface of the whole thing.
That's right.
Boom, walk over to the game.
That's on TV the minute you wake up in Athens, Georgia.
All in. Yeah. That is right in. That was magical. And then you're right. It's enough time afterwards. Plus, I'm always a lightweight with night stuff. I've never been like I could hang till midnight. And so like a late game at the end of it, I'm like, this is not fun for me anymore. I got to get, so the 3 o'clock is right now.
Same. I very rarely went out after a night game. There were times where we would come home after a noon game. You're for sure doing something that night.
Yeah.
But after a 3 o'clock game, it was kind of up to you and lazy daisy and how do you feel and do you have homework and what are you trying to do on Sunday and whatever. But a night game, I was like, peace out, homies. You ain't seeing me. I'm going home.
No,
I mean, I just loved it so much. I loved, and now you could not catch me at a game.
No,
I don't want to be that hot. I don't want to be that crammed. I went to a national championship game. That's different. But like a game right now in Sanford Stadium, nah, dog. Nah, dog.
No, hard pass. I'd like to go to one, but we're too far away from it now. So we're gonna like
one a season. Would that be the dream? Is to go to one Florida game per season?
Yeah, and actually, I'd like it to be one Florida game that's not a popular game, like. Just to do the like sing-alongs, the whole thing.
Yeah, so this is for the girls.
Yes, and also for the nostalgia. Like we'll go.
Got it.
Oh yes, all four of us together. We're going to the place. We're doing all the stuff.
Yeah. I would like to go to some away games. Like when I went to Georgia Notre Dame at Notre Dame, that was one of the most incredible experiences I've ever had.
Imagine.
And I got invited to join a friend for Georgia, Texas this year at Texas. It's the first time we've ever played.
Ooh, yeah.
I have a speaking event that weekend, so I can't go.
Yeah.
But I thought that's one I would do. I would love to see a game at Texas. So there's a couple of away games I would love to see, but I've tread the path too many times to Sanford Stadium to like hustle down and drive and do all that to see a normal Saturday game.
Totally. And I think unless you live there, it's the travel on both ends that you're like, I would have liked, I have a clear enough TV and enough friends in my area and a good enough ability to make a dip on my own. Like there's just no reason.
One of my favorite things last fall that I'll get to do again this fall is going to the bars where Georgia alumni intentionally gather in New York City to watch. I mean, Eddie, the Georgia alum has like a table. With merch. It's like the official New York City bar to watch a Georgia game.
Oh, yeah.
And it was a blast, man. It was such a blast. I'm like, that is 100 times more fun to me than flying to Athens to go to a game. And I want students. I mean, it is a student thing. Yeah. They should all be there.
Yeah, it's a young person's. The live thing is a young person sport. We used to go to the Seattle Gator Club because University of Florida has a big alumni contingent in Seattle. Maybe all schools do, but but because it was West Coast, for some of those noon games, we would show up to a bar at 9 a.m.
That's exactly right.
And it ruled. It was so fun because it was a full no, we're not acknowledging 9 a.m.
Yeah.
Full normal daytime food. Everybody's already drinking and doing what they're going to do.
Yeah, that's how European soccer is all the time. Whenever Premier League, our Premier League games can be at 6 a.m. and the Arsenal bar downtown is serving pies, like meat pies at 6 a.m. and beer. And people are just living their best European English time life.
Yeah. I think you have to live in the time zone. I think you have to live in the time that the sport is happening. I mean, so if a game is happening at 9 o'clock at night and you're watching it at 9 in the morning, you got to live at 9 o'clock at night.
Yeah. You've got to pretend you're in that time zone.
Or there's too much of a disconnect. You got to be where it's at.
That's exactly right. Though I'll tell you, I love watching a soccer match on a Saturday morning in my pajamas with my tea.
Oh, well, that's... Yeah,
so I don't turn into a full Arsenal. I don't put my kid on every Saturday morning at 6 a.m., but I do not mind to roll out of bed, turn the TV on, and your team is playing, even though it's lunchtime in England. So I'm just so happy football's back. I don't know why I probably should ask the Lord why it matters so much to me, but it just feels like I said to my dad when he was here for Ryman weekend, we were talking about it, and I was like, Dad, I mean, you've done this for 70 years, and every fall does it feel like this? And he was like, hey, why are you talking about my age out loud in front of everybody? And it was like our family at the table. So now I've done it on podcast. So sorry, Tom. The people weren't guessing that your 44-year-old daughter had a a father up in his 70s.
Yeah, they were doing some soft math, but
That's
okay.
on them. That's on them, right?
Your family's lovely. We don't have to talk about your family. We don't want to get into it, but I did get time with all of them. And they are fantastic.
Yeah.
Your sisters are fantastic.
They're so cool, right? I know.
You
know what's funny? I'm sorry that some of my cousins couldn't make it because when all 6 of us that are cousin siblings and where we are technically have related parents, but we act like we have the same parents.
Yes.
When we're all together, it's really fun. Yeah. And so a couple of them couldn't make it. But my favorite part that is not Ryman related, except the weekend related, is because the Ryman, it's complicated to bring your friends backstage. We did a pre-party to celebrate with everyone that would have been backstage Sunday night.
Loved it.
So we celebrated Saturday night. And you, my friend, shut down the party.
We were, so we walked in, we didn't know who was going to be there. And Bree and I, Bree was like all in, but I was like, I can't do this. I'm going to see Annie and we're out of here.
Bree literally said, we're going to leave after 10 minutes. I said, okay.
Yeah. So, because she just knew, like, I do not have. So then there was a couple of it broke with Chad Michael Snavely.
Yeah.
And then it would bounce right over to me and your dad. I will reveal none of that conversation because this is not what gentlemen do. Your dad and I talked, your sisters and I, and then it was Jamie Golden from Popcast. And it was lights out.
And Aaron Moon and y'all and Bree.
And you bouncing in and out.
The 4 of y'all shut down the party. So we had to be like, hey, the venue's asking us to go.
People are carrying balloons out.
Done.
And we're not even we're not even taking the signal.
I wasn't either. I was having a great time. It was y'all and my Vandy boys that were just like still there. And I was like, this is exactly a dream. This is how I loved it. I just loved it. So I was proud of you for shutting down the post-Ryman party that happened before the Ryman.
Right. And thank you for inviting us. It was very cool. I was wearing a sweater shirt first time ever. So that was fun.
You were. It looked very cool though.
They all dressed me. They both picked out all my clothing. I would have been, I was going to wear a suit to the Ryman.
Really?
Yeah, that's what I thought we should wear. No, they changed my mind. Even Lucy and Bree asked me what I was going to wear. I was like, I think a suit, but maybe not the jacket, just like cool vest and tie. Yeah. And they were all like politely horrified. They're like,
wow.
They were like, no. And they were right. I would have looked. But anyhow, they picked it out.
You looked so cool.
I mean,
but you did look very cool. I mean, you looked.
Thanks.
You matched the vibe 100%.
Well, that was their doing.
That was awesome.
That sounds fun.
Hey friends, just interrupting this conversation to tell you about one of our incredible partners, Nurture Life. Okay, parents, we always love to share about meal services that make your life easier. But now here's one that makes your life easier and your kids' life easier. Nurture Life is a meal delivery service focused on helping busy parents easily feed my mini BFFs from 10 months old to 10 years old. Listen, my nephew Sam has taste tested for us a lot of Nurture Life food. He has loved it. He loves their corn dogs. They are very Sammy approved. He gives them 2 thumbs up and said they taste, and I quote, very delicious. Y'all, the video of him smacking his lips is adorable. Nurture Life lets kids enjoy a nutritiously balanced meal while still eating all of their favorites like mac and cheese, spaghetti and meatballs, and much more. Their meals are made fresh every week. Seriously, they're never frozen, and they're shipped directly to your door. It is even allergy friendly too. I'm telling you, my sister has loved having Nurture Life meals available for Sam and their snacks. It's all awesome. It's about time that a flexible meal subscription existed for babies and kids. So head to nurturelife.com. Use the code TSF and you're going to get 55% off your first order. That's right, 55% off. Once again, Sammy approved. That is nurturelife.com for 55% off. Make sure you use our promo code TSF so they know that we sent you. Okay, back to our conversation with Eddie.
That sounds fun.
Are we not talking about 2020? Do we just not want to talk about it?
We have to.
I feel weird about it though.
Why?
Like it was a complex year. It was like complex. I really don't want to talk about 2021. 2020 was like, it's hard. It was crazy. I mean, it was like beautiful.
You almost forget
Yeah.
that there was an election at the end of it.
Jeez.
Because, I mean, right. I mean, it is a year. It feels like some friends and I went to Dollywood this weekend. And as we were driving back on Saturday night, we were talking about 2020. And we were talking about how we used to have to convince ourselves to not do everything we were invited to. And now we
Yes.
have to convince ourselves to do everything we were invited to.
Totally.
And my friend Kelly said, I 100% think that is a response to COVID. I think COVID did that to us.
Right. It is no until proven yes. Like we're like, no,
it just
we're
made
good.
everybody more comfortable to stay home all the time
Yes.
or something.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It was.
But man, that first week, I mean, when we started Annie and Eddie, that's how our show started. Is I'll remind people the story I was telling earlier about the girls. We were watching The Bachelor, and because my friends were early sick with COVID and were really sick, like scary sick.
Yeah.
The health department had all of us that were at that viewing of The Bachelor stay home immediately. And so for a week, for
Nuts.
10 days before anyone else got locked down, I was stuck in my house and my friends were stuck in their houses that were there.
And I remember you were such early in this, like they were calling you, wasn't the health department
Every day. She
Right.
called each of us every day.
Right.
And we had to tell her where we were and tell her our temperature.
golly.
Yeah, I mean, it was the blanket of grace over all of this is no one knew what they were doing and everybody was doing the best they could.
Absolutely.
So the health department did not know, they were just trying to manage a
Right.
pandemic and they've never done a pandemic before.
Right.
But
do we
man,
have
it
contagion on
was
our hands or do we have the cold? We don't know. It was
Right.
It was
And you were so kind, Eddie, because I mean, I pretty quickly said, I'm not going to be able to do this by myself. Can we get on every morning and record and just have a quick morning conversation? And you said, yes. And then Chad Snavely said, let me edit it every day,
Yeah.
which is so outside of what he had to do too.
Yeah.
It was the start of one of the best things I've ever made.
Well, that's kind of you to say that. It's also just such a joy. Like every time your team reaches out and is like, hey, do you guys want to do I'm like, yeah. I'm not, it's a blanket yes. Let's just put a thing on a calendar because of course we're going to, but it was weird in prep for the Ryman because I was trying to I was trying to prep.
Yeah.
I listened back to our first quarantine episode show and it was like, well, I take everything a little bit weird, right? Like a little bit too negative, right? But it was like, we're both us, but like the amount we didn't know was, I just wanted to tell those kids like, hey, buckle up. This is going to be, I mean, and so much like COVID, outside COVID, 2021, like love and loss and global pandemics. And it was like mind blowing the world, like in February of 2020 versus like the end of February. Do you remember was the last thing you did before you kind of got locked into this world for
Okay, let me think.
Would it have been The Bachelorette?
Yeah, I mean, because it was the next day. So we watched The Bachelor, and then my friends got diagnosed with COVID the next day, and we were told immediately we had to stay home. So I don't think I even had a grocery trip. But I'll tell you what happened after. So I did my 10 days, and I was done on a Saturday, and Nashville shut down that day, and I was undone. I was like, wait, I have to stay. I already had to stay. And one of my friends has an autoimmune disease, so her immune system is compromised all the time. And so when I left that day when we were shutting down, and we hugged, just because I was the cleanest person. She's not married yet either. I was the cleanest, least diseased possible person. And so we hugged because no one had hugged me. I had been in my space for 10 days. I hadn't touched anybody. And she wasn't able to either because she was so sick. So we hugged, and then I went back to my house and
Hugged
lived
no
there
one
for
a
the
while.
next 50 days or something.
Oh, crazy town.
Crazy. And y'all were
then-
still in Florida.
We're still in Florida. I mean, at some
Was
point
DC on the radar in 2020?
was that the in-between? Gosh, this is where I wish Bree could tap in as a reference because she's so
Yeah,
good
you
with
can
this.
phone a friend
but-
if you want to text her,
I
but she's
know.
a very important lawyer or doing something up there. We can't be sure.
No one can talk about it. I don't even know. So yeah, we were like in between. I think the real, like, we're gonna do this was 2021, but it was sort of like, I think we had realized like the Band-Aid of like had been pulled off. Like, I don't know if we're going back to Orlando, but it was definitely like in every sense, like an in-between year.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, like that was
she done with law school in 2020?
no, because
Okay.
in the middle of it, I think she was a second year because all of a sudden both kids are homeschooled.
Right.
One in my office. I mean, I can't tell you how many episodes of our show, Eve or Lucy is 4 feet to my right
Yeah.
with their little headphones on doing school while you and I are chatting it up. Brianne is on the other side of the house in a virtual class, which at
She
the
was in
time,
class
nobody's
all
working
the
remote
time.
all the
Yes.
time. Yeah, it was crazy.
Yes.
It was crazy. All four of us at home. And it was hard because we know so many people that lost so many people. Like, right.
Yeah.
Like my 2020 experience was, it's hard to reconcile because in some ways it was really sweet. Like I've
Yeah.
had such a good time with Eve and Lucy. And
Yeah.
I professionally got to do a podcast that was
had a ball.
certainly the most listened to thing I'll ever be a part of. Like
Yeah.
it was like, whoa, and
Yeah.
it was this weird dichotomy.
And people still talk to both of us about Annie and Eddie Keep Talking all the time.
and
It is always, y'all got me through COVID. I mean, that is
It
what
was
people
nuts.
say to me once a week. It is so kind. And I'm like, guess what got me through COVID? Annie and Eddie Keep Talking.
I know.
So me
And
too. Me too.
Yeah, it's this kind of, for me, like this bastion of normalcy and fun and silliness and just something else to think about in the midst of a lot of weird.
Yeah. We both got really into running and then we both tore up our knees.
Boy.
So
Yeah, I shredded my knee 2020, first week of 2021. And when
yeah,
did
that's
you?
right. Summer
Yeah.
of 22.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, so funny. It's just so funny to think back on it. You're right. Hey, also, you and I will claim forever that we were the earliest of adopters of Savannah Bananas. Mostly thanks to you. You introduced me to some, and then we had Jared, I think he's the president, right?
Yeah.
Jared on the pod. That was
Yeah.
such a fun Christmas episode. We're going to link to these, Eddie. We'll link to the first episode.
And I love that.
We'll
was
link
lunacy.
to the Christmas episode because we made it a Christmas gala and we both brought a quote date or a guest, but neither of us knew who the other person was bringing, and it
Right.
was such a
Yeah.
trip.
It was so fun. Yeah, there were so many little things in that were just like out of us sitting at home all day and having a lot of time to just yeah, we're going to talk about Tiger King for a whole episode because the whole planet is doing this right now.
Isn't that amazing how the whole planet watched that?
Oh, yeah.
Everybody.
Yeah, everybody. It was a whole.
Everybody.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't have told you who Joe Exotic was before that. You did know. Tell everybody how you did know
Well,
who
I
Joe
didn't know
Exotic was.
I knew, but yeah, I mean, we accidentally went to Carol Baskin's refuge like 10 years earlier in Florida.
The picture's so good. The picture's so good.
It's Bree and I just young and smiling in front of Carol Baskin's place, which you realize was in the middle of complete lunacy. But that's Florida. You can take almost any
so
selfie at Florida and trace it back to a pretty horrific news story. It's
was
kind of
so
one of our
good.
things in Florida.
Do you remember what else you would watch during, what were you watching in the evenings? Was there things you and Bree and the girls were going to as here's part of our rhythm that we don't leave home, but here's part of our rhythm?
Well, like so many people, Ted Lasso was water in the desert, right?
Yeah, that's true. That's totally true.
Is that even on our list? I don't remember if I...
No,
was
I don't
it
see it on our list,
2020?
but it was Ted Lasso. And then for me, Hamilton, once they decided to release Hamilton,
Right.
that was a game changer for me.
That's right. Yeah, Hamilton was... Yeah, those were the big ones. I remember shifting viewed, because I remember not wanting to watch... There was enough darkness. It was a lot of give me...
Oh, yeah. I watched Schmigadoon, I feel like started.
Great one.
Schmigadoon is in I'm not sure the exact year. It's either 20 or 21.
Yeah.
But it was in my rhythms of
Right.
we watched when Ted Lasso releases and we watched Schmigadoon and I loved them because I just needed nothing serious. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm sure this exists and I just have not Googled it. So someone will send it to us. What has happened to movie theaters since 2020? I can't imagine.
I mean, yeah, And that whole industry. And
Right.
it went from nobody in movie theaters, like completely just empty for so long. It's a very, I mean, you got to remember, well, not you have to remember, that sounded like I'm telling you what to do, but like
No.
it wasn't until like Top Gun, which wasn't that long ago, that was like
Right.
the movies are back. It took
Right.
years. And I don't even know that they are back. The whole industry is different. Did you ever see Matt Damon on Hot Ones talking about the movie industry?
No, is it good?
Oh, he gives like a 5-minute, here's how streaming changed everything, how the whole business model changed.
Oh, I'm going to watch it.
Yeah.
Matt Damon on Hot Ones. I want that guy to ask some better questions.
The Hot Ones guy?
Yeah. Do you like his questions?
I do, but I also think I like it in the context of like, they're both suffering.
Yeah.
Well
True,
done
true,
getting
true,
something
true.
out.
What could I do if my mouth was burning? That's totally fair.
Right.
I'm often like, is he trying to ask a real question or is he trying to distract this person and make us laugh? And I want to hear
right,
real
I think-
questions, you know?
Right, yeah.
So you're right. I should be kinder.
No.
Quick side note. What did you just drink? For our audio listeners, you drank something very green.
Oh, yeah. No, I'm back in trying to get the temple in order here a little bit. So I'm doing
a little morning smooth.
a little morning smooth, little spinach, little protein powder, some
Okay.
dry oatmeal, almond milk.
Man, I've never known a generation to care about protein like we do. Wow.
Boy, we love it,
We
don't
will
we?
be remembered for a few things, and one of them will be how we prioritized 100 grams of protein in our day. My gosh.
But like right before us, it was like low fat, right? Everything was like our parents.
Low sugar-free.
Sugar-free, low fat, all of that stuff. And now we're just like, no, all that
I
stuff
mean,
just
speaking
filled
of college, you know what I crushed in college is Snackwell's fat-free devil food cake cookies. Oh, I just crushed them. I mean, they were so healthy, I thought.
and you could just and by college math, you're like, well, that's, I can eat 2 boxes. No problem.
Yeah, this is fat-free.
This is basically lettuce.
Yeah.
You know what I crushed in college?
A smoothie for your breakfast. Well done. Sorry.
You know what I crushed in college? Everything.
Yeah, literally.
Let's just get a whole entire chicken tender sub and just pretend like there's.
It's also your first time that you're just totally in charge of your own intake. Mm-hmm. And you're like, if I want that right now, my only barrier now is me. Mm-hmm. Whether that's me wanting to get out of the house or me wanting to spend my money that way, there is no like adult barrier anymore.
Yeah.
And therefore, I will crush everything.
And moderation in any sense of it. I guess I shouldn't say any, but every sense I can think of was not a thing for a long time. And given left to my own vices, moderation is still something I left the house with zero harness on.
100% moderation. I mean, there are times, Eddie, when I am the most tired, and this is such an such an alarm for me ringing is when I'm sitting at a meal and I feel like I'll never get to eat enough because we're sharing or because of what I ordered or because of, and I just have no moderation in my mind. And I have to have conversations like, if your stomach is still hungry, this is what I say in my head, if your stomach is still hungry when this is done, there's food at home. You don't have to, if you didn't get enough of this appetizer that you love, you can come back here tomorrow and have it by yourself. I mean, wild conversations in my head out of a lack of moderation as like that. For some reason, that button just did not get inserted into the creation of Annie.
It did not with me either. And it's so hard. There is never enough. There is never an off switch. Like when people say, are you guys hungry for dinner? I'm always like, who's not? Like, who has ever been like, nah? Like, aren't you always like, it's just such a, and then realize the world doesn't live that way.
That's exactly right. The majority of us, and I'm using us loosely because it's not you or me. The majority of us just like eat when the stomach says, can I have something to nourish me?
Yeah, I wish.
Not I. That is a discipline I have to choose.
Oh, yeah. It's a thing I've learned through books that in my best I can institute it, but it's never a thing that just happens. Like I'm doing an impression of somebody else who knows what they're doing, but it's never real.
So right, Eddie. That feels so right. Every time that moderation is leading for me, I'm doing an impression of someone who has moderate thinking.
Yeah. And food is such a bastardly thing too, because like with drinking, like I stopped drinking like 3 years ago.
Yep.
And there is no choice in that. And it's
That's
helpful because it's just like, you do not ever. But
You
with
don't ever have
food,
to.
you're like, you have to. You got to have some gas in the tank. And so that's why
I have thought about that so much. I wrote about this in a book one time, but I watched a documentary about addiction and I was like, oh no, that's so much how I feel about food at times. I was like, I remember hearing the guy talk about cocaine and I was like, holy cow, that he could be talking about country fried steak. We could be on the same page.
Yeah.
And but you're exactly right. Alcohol, I don't drink anymore right now either.
Yeah.
And don't do drugs. All the things that you can live without.
Yeah.
You can live without food intake.
Right. Yeah.
And so we have to learn that moderation. But I love that I'm doing an impression of someone who has moderation.
Right.
Maybe that's why it never lasts for me as far as a lifestyle, because you can't do impressions your whole day.
No, that's right. And so I think part of that is not the discipline, but like if I wear this costume long enough, maybe I'll start to feel like myself in it and it will become, but food never feels that way. Like alcohol, I never, ever think about now.
Yeah, me neither.
Because of a process, right? That you go through to not think of, but it's because you can get distance from it, but you never get distance from food.
Yeah.
And it's just like a daily, weekly. Yeah. Anyway.
With your alcohol, can we talk about this if you want to?
I think I'm going to do, I've never really talked about it, so I'll answer everything I can until I can't.
Me neither. I've not talked a single time about that I'm not drinking in my life.
Yeah.
And I'm also just saying I'm not drinking right now because I don't know if I'm ever going to drink again.
Right. Like if it's a flag in the sand or a season.
Yeah.
Either
Yeah, I don't know.
Which isn't,
But
by the way, a value thing. Sometimes it's just good to take a breather from stuff. So it's
Totally. And I don't think there's anything, I think Jesus turned water into wine, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But I've just been very interested with when I've missed it and when I haven't.
Mm-hmm.
And paying attention to that of just going like, I don't think about this, but it used to be a really interesting part of my social life. Mm-hmm. But now almost, I think it may be cultural too, because everywhere you go now has a mocktail.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
And it looks just the same. And it costs almost the same.
Right. Because there's
So are you mocktailing?
I don't, because I don't love them. Like,
great.
Because they're basically, for me, they're just like fruit juice, which is fine.
Yeah.
If it's a good mocktail where they're using like fake booze, I don't like the feeling of tasting my favorites. Like I don't want to be fooled into thinking I have gin in my mouth, because that's not a feeling that that is a thing I'm not comfortable with anymore.
Yes.
That also I need to not.
Yeah. I think that's something we got good practice in 2022 was like, for a lot of my friends, I don't know a person who didn't have conversations around what can I keep in my house and what can't I? And because for me, there wasn't an Oreo in sight in that building.
Yeah.
Oreo's fine for a lot of people, not for me. Yeah. Oreo is not a balanced item for me. And so I think so many of us got to have those conversations around like what alcohol stays in our house, what food stays in our house, what treats stay in our house, what channels do we watch, what do we,
And it was hard because it was like really when we are left with only the distractions that we can conjure ourselves.
Right.
How far are we going to dig in? Because immediately, I think the first thing we felt was like, we're doing so much less. We're not like running here or running there and going to this thing and that thing. And, we were happy with life, but also you just feel it all slow down. But you're like, okay, well, that was a thing that was taking my mind off of whatever my mind is trying to not focus on. Yeah. And it just felt like, ooh, I'm going to now distract myself. And I think that's a great opportunity. I think a lot of people learned how to make bread and did cool hobbies and stuff like that. And then also did some stuff that wasn't super rad.
Yeah. And got to ask themselves some real questions. I did too about, I think you're right. I think March of 2020 was a lot of, we don't know what's going on. This is kind of scary. We aren't doing anything social. We aren't. I don't remember a lot of problem solving in March as far as can we all sit outside on blankets a long way from each other? Like, I don't remember doing that those first few weeks.
Right.
But then it started being like, okay, this isn't moving on quite like we thought it would move on.
Right.
So if I'm bored, like you said, if I'm bored, what are my distractions? And whoa, this thing I thought I could live with, I cannot live with.
Yes.
This thing that was casually in my house, like Oreos, 6 weeks ago is not casual anymore because I'm here all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And if I don't do all these social things, what do I do?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Interesting.
I am alone with my thoughts now.
So many people listening and people you and I know lost people that they love. And so they have a marking in 2020 of like,
Oh yeah.
that person I love died.
Yeah.
And I didn't get to, or we had a baby and my husband didn't get to be in the room with us.
Yeah,
And-
absolutely. Yeah. Huge things happened in life that were just like invisible to anyone. Good, bad, horrific, beautiful, like all of it. And it was just this year that I feel like the only way we've ever summed it up is people just saying like 2020 and then groaning. Like even like Lillian, who wrote the lovely like little fact sheet for us.
Yeah.
Like,
We do like a
sums it.
fact sheet every time that she gives us.
Yeah, her events of 2020 said, well, you know, the thing. And you're like, yeah, that's
Yeah.
about it. It is like, it is more complex than we can ever, I don't think we'll ever,
Yeah.
I certainly won't be able to like wrap my head around like, and this was the point of it all, or this was it was all the things, wasn't it?
That sounds fun.
And now back to finish up our conversation with Eddie.
That sounds fun.
So I'm glad we acknowledge all of that because I do want to ask you this question.
I'm ready.
With the acknowledgement that it was absolutely devastating for a lot of people.
Yes.
It was devastating for our company financially because we lost speaking gigs and podcast advertising partners because everybody was afraid and we couldn't travel. And so there was a lot of devastation. My question is, do you ever miss it?
Desperately.
Really?
Oh yeah. I would do elements of that year. I would do the life that year had. It was for the Kaufholz family only in the particular place and time we were in, if we're ignoring all of the news of the world.
Yeah.
So all
That's
of
right.
that.
That's right.
I mean, I had all of my closest people within 20 feet of me all day long. It was simple. And the big news of the day was we explored every single trail around our neighborhood. And we just had sweet, close time together. I feel like it has never been quieter and simpler and more connected.
I feel the same. There was a night and early on, I think I would like, when I think back to that year, like April and May, when we were starting to figure out how to see each other. You and I were rolling with the show. Work was rolling from home. I had figured out how to staple. I mean, we had shipped microphones to my house. Chad had set up stuff for me in my house.
Yeah.
I had stapled a blanket to the wall so that the sound was right, you know, all that stuff.
Yeah.
And I remember there was a night where my couple of closest girlfriends, all of us do not have roommates or husbands. And so we all live by ourselves and we watched a movie together by all being on FaceTime or Zoom or something. And we all hit play at the same time. And I worked on a puzzle while the movie played in front of me. And I'd look down at my computer and my three friends were watching the same movie, doing what they were doing in their house.
Yeah.
And there was a simplicity and slowness
I know.
that maybe we could recapture if we tried and moved in lived a rural lifestyle. But I live part-time in New York on purpose. And you live in DC. Like we have both moved to bigger cities since 2020 when we're both saying, man, I miss the simplicity. And yet what our decisions say is let's go faster.
Oh, a bazillion percent. I mean, and it's like a kid start in 6th grade, a kid start in 7th grade. Everybody's in a sport. Everybody's got multiple. I mean, it is not, I'm not complaining about it, but whatever lesson there was from 2020 that was like outside of all of the horrific,
Yes.
what has this taught you about it? I feel like either yeah, it hasn't fully stuck, and maybe it can't. Maybe it just can't.
Yeah.
Maybe that's the nature of like, sorry, you're going back to the school's open again. You don't get to just be here all day.
Yeah.
And aging. Sorry, you're a 7th grader. You don't want to be next to your dad all day. It was cute when you were in 3rd grade. It's not cute when you're like the world moves on, and I think we have to keep up with it. But I have that feeling about when I think about first year of marriage, and we stayed in student housing in the middle of nowhere, Kentucky, and it was just like, oh my God, it was so simple. Like I have.
Did y'all eat at Did y'all eat at Asbury's dining hall when y'all were first married?
No, we were at Asbury Seminary, which is a block and 100 miles away from Asbury College.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
They do not cross over in a totally horrible way. They should all be, or they didn't when I was there. It was like, but no, so I never did that.
That was the reason I ask is that was the first time in my life I ever saw multiple cereals lined up in a clear tubes that you could just spin and fill up bowls. And I was like, college. I was in 8th grade. And I was like, oh, college is so cool. Look at all those cereals.
What were you doing there in 8th grade? Was it like
our
ICFUS
family
or something?
did there was like in the summer, there was like a family camp or something that we went to. Yeah.
And you said, oh no, we went to a family camp at a college campus 2 summers ago. And even Lucy were like, the future is college. I mean, it was
that's
just
how
like,
I felt. That's how I felt. I was like, cereal of ever. Like, I just remember Cocoa Puffs were there at your leisure. I was like, I cannot imagine how great college is going to be.
There was a dessert bar thing.
Yeah.
And they're like, do we just pay for it? I'm like, no, you get what you want. And they just like both came back like, we got 2. I'm like, that's right. College is
right.
awesome.
Sorry. So that's what you missed the simplicity of that.
I do. I miss some of those things. I think I also miss that time of life, which I think conflates a little bit with, I don't know if it's 2020 or just it was a younger, different day. But either way, they sit together
I just
in my
wonder
mind.
if heaven / new earth / the eternal part of us is just going to like everything that feels nostalgic now is the feeling of being with God forever. You know?
Boy, that's hard to, that's a lot. Yeah. It would be the closest I could ever put to it is those sweet feelings and knowing you're in it.
Yeah.
You know, like knowing in those moments, like that it's happening. We're all doing like family reading. We would all read together. We would sit on a sofa and it was like part of the day. We would sit down and just read. And I'm like, I think I knew in the moment that was sweet.
Yeah.
In retrospect, I think it was sweeter than I could have probably ever internalized.
That's right.
At that time.
I think so. I mean, I said to when we were riding home from Dollywood, I said to my friend Kelly and Jamie, I was like, I did not know how to be with myself. I knew how to be by myself. You have to be by yourself for your, you're your only constant companion besides the Lord. But I didn't know how to be with myself and enjoy it until COVID. And that's invaluable to me. But it was, for all the reasons it was terrible, there were a couple of gifts that offered like that, that I don't know if I'd have gotten it another way than if I would have had to stay home every night for months.
Yeah, there was a wild, hard reset on the world in a certain way, wasn't there? And how it's coming, how we're booting back up is different for each person. But like, what a thing you learned at that time.
Yeah.
Boy, this 2020 episode, I'm not trying to wrap up, but it's so different. I thought we'd be going through like all Tiger King-y kind of stuff. This is, I like this direction. This is different than I thought we'd go.
It
I
just
never know.
isn't. I don't think anyone who's a grown-up in 2020, who was a grown-up in 2020, can talk about it without nuances.
Yes.
I don't know how you do. I don't know how you act like it's all bad, even with the great losses we experienced. And I don't know how you act like it was like all funny and good. I just feel like it is so Tiger King and death, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
wild.
It's right. It's Hamilton being released and stuff like that. And not knowing how,
and riots. And
riots.
I mean,
and
just
deep social
what happens
inequality.
when you tell people they can't be on purpose in their life
that's
with their
wild.
day, they figure out something to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was so much.
Whew. 2020.
Ew. Can't wait to watch that Matt Damon Hot Ones, though.
That was good.
Hot Ones and comedians in cars getting coffee are two of the most brilliant concepts
Yes.
that I've ever seen.
How many times can you reinvent having a conversation? And they did it both. Like they both
And
just
they
like
both have done it. And I'm watching other people imitate both of those.
yes.
And I go like, it's funny to watch. Full stop, it's funny to watch. But when you're being that, I'm not subtweeting anybody. It's all over the internet. It's not like,
yes.
but, and you see people doing like riding in cars and having conversations or riding in cars and singing. And you go like, well, that was totally James Corden's
Carpool
thing.
karaoke was completely,
Yeah.
But it does also a little bit point to full circle, like you all getting together to watch The Bachelorette, right?
Yeah.
Because there is a like, we're doing a thing and we're talking, right? I play Xbox.
Right.
We all know I play Xbox every week with my pals. We're doing a thing and we're talking. And there is something about like, wings are the thing. We're focusing on hot stuff, right?
Yeah.
But also we're talking. And there's something like you can Trojan horse like actual deep conversation in by sitting inside of, you know, an unbelievable Porsche, like, and talking about the Porsche, but then also like all of the other stuff. It's a brilliant way to get people to let down their guard a bit.
Yeah. It's brilliant.
We podcast and we're friends.
We podcast.
Sure.
And
we'll hold a
hopefully people
podcast.
are doing something that matters to them while they're listening to us and having someone to talk to about this afterwards. That's why we say, share this with somebody and y'all talk about it. We had girls come to the Ryman who said, we have a podcast club and we listen to the episode and we text about it and we talk about it and we meet up and talk about That Sounds Fun episodes.
Oh,
Isn't that cool? So it's like a book club, but it's a podcast club.
That is very cool. That was the coolest, hardest thing of the Ryman, by the way, was real people that are not like people being there that you're like, oh, I've met you digitally so many times. But then also being like, we can't not all 2,300 of us get to all meet each other. And so it's this crazy, like, but it was like, I know you're used to this, but that's not the world. But knowing that those like podcast club people were there, we're like, oh, that's cool. Like we've spent time together and now we're actually spending time together.
Someone said to me the other day, I don't know when the loudest cheer of the show was. If it was when you came out at the front, when Amy Grant came out, or when you announced Eddie Kaufholz. So they were like, we think Eddie may have gotten as big a cheer as anybody.
Well,
I think that's
it
true.
Was Amy Grant. People were literally standing up and like
they didn't know what to do with their bodies.
They were like bowled over. I don't know how else to say it. They were like, oh my God. Knox and Jamie just cried immediately.
Jamie cried. It was great.
That was trippy. Also being like, well, we don't have to talk about it. But just standing up there next to Amy Grant, realizing like, I have to talk to her now.
Yeah.
And be a person with this icon. And there she is. That is awesome. That is one of those things I'm like, well, I'll never figure that out. That was just
You and I
cool.
are going to chop this up. And we are going to talk all about the Ryman. The actual podcast birthday, our first episode was in November of 2014. So in November of 2024, you are going to get a full recap of the Ryman from Eddie and I and some other fun things. So
Great, good.
Edward, what a joy to get to do this with you this week.
Annie, such a joy. And I am feeling a bit nostalgic about getting to do this with you. And I just appreciate it. I enjoy this.
Mutual.
And hello to the podcast
We'll end the
club.
show as we did for the entire of 2020. All right, friends, go wash your hands.
Bye, buddies.
You guys, don't you love him? 2020, the year of Annie and Eddie keep talking. What a joy. He is the best. He's just the best. As always, head over to social media. Tell Eddie thank you for being on the show. And I promise a full Ryman recap is coming with Eddie in November. If you haven't listened to the other recap episodes with Eddie this year, we have a whole Spotify playlist for you. It is in the show notes. We've done every year of the podcast. Well, and we've talked about a lot of other things because Annie and Eddie just keep talking. If you have any questions from this episode, you can drop them in the Q&A box on your Spotify app if you're a Spotify listener, or send them straight to us on Instagram at That Sounds Fun Podcast. We'll try to answer them there. If you need anything else from me, you know I'm embarrassingly easy to find. Annie F. Downs on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, all the places you may need me. That is how you can find me. And I think that's it for me today, friends. Go out or stay home. Do something that sounds fun to you, and I will do the same. Today, what sounds fun to me is starting to pack for New York. I am heading up in just a couple of days, and I've got a pile of things to take with me. I'm excited. Y'all have a great weekend and a fun holiday weekend here in the U.S., and we'll see you back here on Monday, Labor Day, where we're having another Enneagram conversation. This is a great one for families, for moms. Y'all are going to love it. Your Enneagram coach, Beth McCord, is with us. We'll see you on Monday.
sounds fun.
That sounds fun.
Oh, that sounds fun.
Check 1, 2 on the microphone. NEF down, then your car to your home. Every week it's something new. A deep talk or an interview. She'll make you laugh, she'll make you cry.